is a presentation of the Match Talk Podcast Network. It's time for Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. Now, let's join your host, three-time National Wrestling Writer and Broadcaster of the Year, Jason Bryant.
Another episode of Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. Jason Bryant here with you. Last show, we introduced you to the new Hokie assistant wrestling coach, Jared Freyr, who is an Olympian. Now, we're going to introduce you to the other new Hokie assistant wrestling coach who, like Mr. Freyr, an Olympian, Frank Molinaro. Welcome to Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling.
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Well, let's just get right to it. You're coming off a performance at the U.S. Open, second place finish to Jordan Oliver as you prep for the next Olympic cycle going into 2020. 4 years ago, before you decided to go really, okay, I'm going to go for 2016. How did you get started preparing for that quad compared to how you're getting started for this quad?
Well, when I started for that quad, I really didn't know anything, to be honest. I never wrestled freestyle growing up. Never went to Fargo. I never even spent one summer training freestyle. So when I first started, it was like learning a completely new sport. Felt like I was learning wrestling over again in all aspects, technically, conditioning. So starting now, I feel like I feel more of a veteran, more experienced, more confident. And it's more about fine tuning at this point and just continuing to stay the course, not learning all the basics again first.
What was the first match you realized that, okay, this freestyle thing is a lot different?
Man, when I got whooped at Pan Am's, I think it was 2013, I got tech fall by Tober Valdez from Cuba. And ironically, he was the same guy that I beat in 2016, where I realized, wow, I'm right where I need to be to win the trials.
We look at going into the trials because this is so much a part of the story that was Frank Molinaro last year. Coming in as the 9 seed, you and Jaden Cox were similar in that respect. You beat Brent Metcalf on his home mats. This is that Iowa-Penn State thing going. How much did that victory at that tournament really be like, okay, I think, you said this is where you need to be, but how much was like, yeah, now it's on?
I think that day I did a really good job of just being in the moment, from really the whole experience, and I flew out there and I cut my weight and I did everything. I really tried to make a concerted effort, and I was really vigilant about not letting my mind go to the next match, not letting my mind go to the next period even. I really just stayed present, and, that was really exciting, but, I went right back to the process, cool down, stretch, do what you got to do to get ready for the next match. And I think it really paid off because, had I looked ahead at that tournament, even after beating Metcalf and saw, potential Zane, potential Stieber, Pico, Kennedy on the other side, all those guys, I think that is just too overwhelming. So I really, after that match, it didn't really sink in. I don't think a lot of it sunk in until after the whole experience because I feel like I had to just refocus right away to go to Mongolia and Turkey. It was kind of weird.
You're a 4-time All-American, national champion, and those are credentials that typically don't make people an underdog. You were an underdog in every single match you wrestled at the trials. What's that feel like?
I love being the underdog. I kind of still feel like the underdog for some reason. I think it's just kind of a mindset. You always feel like you can get better. Even when you win, you feel like you can do better. So I really just try to embrace that mindset and wouldn't expect anything less at this point.
You've done some interviews about what it meant to come back and get that bronze medal and be in a situation where if things went crazy, and they did, to end up getting a berth into the Olympics. What was your roller coaster of emotions like coming off the victory in Mongolia that said, okay, well, I didn't finish second, but now I'm in a situation where you wait and see, and then all of a sudden you get in. I mean, what's that period of time like for you?
Oh, man, it was definitely a grind. I think it, really hardened me as a competitor, really hardened me as, a wrestler. So really grateful for all that experience. Coming after that Mongolia trip, that was a really long flight home, knowing that I was going to have to go back and fly out, 4 or 5 days later. So that was a little bit challenging, but, wrestling back for that third place match was, I consider it, kind of a defining moment in my life. I think it really showed me deep down, what God is capable of doing, and it showed me deep down what I'm capable of doing, and there was a lot of fear, there was a lot of emotion involved, and I kind of just trusted God, and, things worked out. So it was a really defining moment in my life, personally.
When you look at where you came from in 2013, when you said you started wrestling freestyle, and yeah, you were the enigma. I do this massive chart on college All-Americans that wrestle in Fargo, and I remember contacting you a couple years ago. You ever wrestle Fargo? I was like, nope, never wrestled freestyle. And here you are on the Olympic team, and it's like you're kind of that abnormality, because most of the college All-Americans and national champions have wrestled at least in some way, shape, or form in Fargo. And to look at 2013 and to know you were literally an inch or two away from a bronze medal, trying to finish that takedown on Frank Chamizo in the bronze medal match. Do you look at it, man, how much does that fire you up to continue to go more, knowing you were just that close?
Man, it really fires me up. I think that anybody that wrestles Chamizo at his best will probably realize how good he is, how much of a winner he is as a competitor. So, I really felt like that was a match that, he's probably really grateful that he won. So just really close. Really the whole year I got a lot of good experience. I was able to wrestle pretty much anybody who was good in my weight class. I wrestled all the world champs, all the previous world champs, world medalists at 70 kilos, and I trained with an Olympic champ. So, it's extremely motivating to know how close I am. And, really for me, I don't really think about doing too much else besides wrestling. Wrestling's my life. I wake up every day and I try to get better at it. I'm always super excited to go to practice, super excited to go to these tournaments. So this is really just, I'm just grateful that I can still physically compete at this level, and still physically with the time and the training and the efforts to cut the weight and do all that kind of things on top of my other responsibilities. And just really grateful I can still do that.
Coming out of New Jersey, there is a swagger that comes along with being a New Jersey state champion. There's a confidence that comes along with being an NCAA champion on an NCAA championship team. When you go overseas and you find yourself, it doesn't happen very often, but there is a situation where you get blown off the mat a little bit. What does it do to you mentally? Be like, okay, is it an ego check? Is it a gut check? How do you put in perspective getting beat and coming back to the drawing board, being, man, I did everything right. How do I close the gap on this guy that you may have to admit the guy's better than you right now?
Yeah, I think the most important thing where it starts is, you can't let winning change you, and you can't let losing change you. I think sometimes people let winning change them on the flip side of that. Because for me, wrestling is not so much about the success anymore. It's more so just, it's a craft for me. This is where all my passion is. This is a single-minded focus every day I wake up. So, when I approach those things, I try to be, try to take some of the emotion out and be more of a realist. And, and that helps me attack my weaknesses, especially, when I can have that humility after my losses. I can really attack those weaknesses, attack those areas that I need to improve on, and just be more objective about it, and just not get too emotional, not get too high, not get too low, and if I can keep that balance while I'm competing, while I'm training, while I'm preparing, I feel like I'm definitely, going to be at my best.
You're still relatively new as a husband and father. When you look at being a competitive athlete, they talk about you've got to be selfish as an athlete, and having a wife and kids doesn't allow you to be selfish all the time. What have you learned about being an athlete from the time you were single to now being married with children?
I just learned, how important it is to, make sure that I'm focusing on the right things. Make sure that I'm being disciplined about, where I'm placing my energy, where I'm placing my focus. What are the things that you're chewing on in your head all day? What are the issues in your head all day? What are the things that are really important to you? What is your perspective? I'm just trying to really make sure that I do a good job of, having a perspective that, would be a reflection of God and, kind of some of my values.
Now, the family thing brings a new meaning when it comes to your trip to Rio this year, training camp, you're overseas, and then you've got a child on the way. You explain how that's kind of eating at you as you're trying to get prepared for the Olympic Games.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy. That was 3.5 weeks early. Really totally unexpected one day. But it was hard. I had to really make sure that I didn't let my mind wander and think too much about it, as sick as that sounds. But, it really gave me something to look forward to. I was always just itching to get back there and see him. So, things didn't work out for me in the end. I lost by 1 second, but I got to come off the airplane and, see a beautiful, healthy second boy. So it was an incredible blessing. I think that God's timing definitely has a sense of humor. So, the hard part was holding myself off, and just kind of seeing him on FaceTime and stuff, not being able to hold him, that kind of stuff.
Now, you've got a support system. It's a little interesting because your wife, Kara, is a gymnastics coach, a competitive athlete. So she knows a little bit about what you go through as an athlete. How much did her experiences as an athlete really help you go, okay, you know what? She knows what I'm going through. I don't have to constantly worry about how are you doing? How you doing? How you doing? She knows.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I mean, she's right there in it with me. She loves wrestling. Her dad wrestled for Bobby Douglas at Arizona State. Her brother wrestled at Cal Poly. And she's just, an intense competitor like I am, hard worker. So, I always make her watch wrestling film and just bore her to death with wrestling technique. And, so she even gives me good ideas. She gave me some good ideas for the trials, how I can make some adjustments on those guys. So she's really involved in it and really supportive. I'm really lucky to have a wife that, takes the time to really care about it, really get to know the sport, and really make it as easy as possible for me, because she knows how much I want to win. She knows how focused I am, so she makes it really easy.
I'm just happy when my wife picks up wrestlers' names and knows them. I talked to her the other day. It's like, yeah, it's like, who do you got on the show coming up? I was like, Frank Molinaro. She goes, why do I know that name? He was on the Olympic team, right? So I'm like, chalk that up as a win for me. No, because my wife knows the guests that are doing good things. Now, we talk about the family. When you decide to leave Penn State here recently to take the job at Virginia Tech, there's obviously the competitive side of it. There's the coaching side of it. But before we even get to that, how much about Blacksburg is comfortable for you and your family?
Man, this place is freaking awesome. I've only been here for, I think, probably a total of close to 2 weeks. And, I just love it. I never really lived in the South, obviously. I don't really know much about it, but the people are incredibly nice. There's good places to eat. There's good places to kind of get away, and there's some nature and some mountains, there's some fishing, some big lakes, rivers, all that kind of stuff. And, in terms of the university, it's just a great place. It's a great place to raise a family. Good community. I like that it has that community sense too. It's not just a big university. There's also a community. And the campus is beautiful, the buildings, the facilities, the support. Really everything here is, just above and beyond my expectations. I think everything here is also in place to continue to build this program. I mean, the program already has a great pedigree. They've been in the top 10 the past 10 years, and they've won trophies at the NCAA tournament. So they're doing something right here. And, I was just grateful to be invited and be able to be a part of it. But I really do love it down here. It's a great place to live.
What was that phone call like from Tony Roby? What was the sales pitch?
He was really nice. He was really respectful. He asked, he knew I was in training. He knew I was really focused, so he made sure it was okay to kind of reach out to me first. I really respected that. And, he said, I don't want you to be distracted now, but kind of here's the situation. I had to move pretty fast on it. And then, he gave me some of the details. And then from there on, we were just communicating back and forth.
How much did the Jared Freyr factor into this? Because he's a guy that was at the Olympics, the quad before you, crafty veteran, has some stuff, and you're sitting there going, maybe this guy can help me get ready for 2020 as well.
Absolutely. I was I'm really excited to be working with Jarrett because the guy wrestled in 4 Olympic trials and he qualified for 5 of them. He made the Olympic team at 33 years old. So, he was wrestling all the way up to he was 33, trying to get better, trying to improve, trying to continue to sharpen his game, and he was able to be successful. So, there's a lot of stuff that I can learn from him, and there's a lot of ideas that I'll be able to bounce off him. And he's the same weight class as me, so it was just a home run when I heard that he was coming here too. It made it even better.
When you finished your career at Penn State, was coaching the logical thing for you to do? Is it something you wanted to do, or did you just take an opportunity to be like, all right, I'll do this for a couple years and then I'll figure something else out? Is coaching your ultimate goal here?
Yeah, coaching was my ultimate goal. I think my senior year kind of ended a little bit weird. I got hurt pretty bad at the tournament, and it was just kind of a stressful time for me, a stressful year, and I didn't really have that itch to go out and compete, so the number one option was coaching. That's what I wanted to do, and I'm glad that I did it because I learned a lot. It gave me a different perspective. It was a good time for me to step away, but, I just knew that I couldn't stay away because I still felt like I had the juice.
From a coaching perspective, a lot of times we see high-profile wrestlers stay on as a volunteer assistant at their alma mater, and then maybe they elevate through, and the only system they know is the one they wrestled in. How much did going to Rutgers and then going back to Penn State change your mindset on how to coach?
Well, it definitely gave me, a different perspective that I didn't have, to be honest. I kind of was a little bit one-sided, in my approach with some of the kids at first. I was a little bit one-sided in, how I thought things should be. So, going there and being on a little bit of a different grind was a really good learning experience for me. I learned a lot from the kids. I learned a lot from just a different kind of culture and setup. And, I've been able to use that experience in my wrestling career, and I've been able to use it moving forward in coaching. And I think that, kind of the mix between both those programs and, just the plethora of wrestling that I've been doing in freestyle overseas and all that kind of experience together, it's really going to be helpful coaching here in Blacksburg.
What are some of the similarities you've seen already from your alma mater and your former employer at Penn State to what you're walking into at Virginia Tech?
First, I'd say Coach Roby's consistency. I think he's really has the right values and the right attitude. He's very consistent. He works really hard. He's got a great relationship with the kids on the team, and generally they're extremely grateful. So, he's definitely, I would say that's the number one consistency. I think another one is that, a lot of the kids here love wrestling. Wrestling is not something that they have to do. Wrestling is something that they get to do every day, and they're excited, and they're in the wrestling room, and they're willing to learn. And, they've been really great about me and Jarrett coming in and kind of buying into some of the new stuff because, it's hard when you get new coaches. I've had new coaches, and there's new philosophies, new things. They're throwing new ideas at you. It's kind of, maybe saying that some of the things that you're doing are wrong, so you got to have some humility. And the kids have been great about it, so I think that's definitely a reflection of Coach Roby. And the support from, the alumni, the support from the past, just from the past the kids that wrestled here at the banquet, the support for the Southeast Regional Training Center. These people are on board trying to build this thing up, and they're motivated and they're committed to our goals too. So I think really you can really see that foundation, here that I saw at Penn State.
Yeah, let's talk about the banquet a little bit. End of the school year, people are finishing up exams, the spring semester's ending, and you get thrown into this end of the year thing. I mean, what was it like to meet some of the Hokie Nation faithful and other staff members that you hadn't had a chance to meet yet?
It was great. It was entertaining for me. It was kind of like a history lesson. I got to learn a lot about kind of the team, the culture, some of the kids, the who's who of Virginia Tech wrestling, so it was actually good for me. And to be honest, I got to learn more people's names because I'm pretty bad with names. So it was fun kind of learning about all the kids on the team and, and also, listening to the senior speeches, it was really cool to see kind of the impact that some of the coaches had on them, had to see the impact that Virginia Tech wrestling has had on them. So just a lot of good things, a lot of good takeaways. And, And I think that I'm even more excited now about kind of the support staff that we have, some of the people that, I was unfamiliar with.
When people look at the staff dynamic, the misconception people sometimes have is you need an upper weight coach, a middleweight coach, and a heavyweight coach. You've got two guys with you and Freyr that are middleweights. Roby's, well, he's probably a little heavier than you guys are now. And Ty, depending on how much he wants to eat or not eat, he's going to handle the big guys. But what's one thing you've learned in your coaching career that is different from you as a wrestler? What do you teach that's different from you as an actual competitor?
Well, you always teach the basics, because, no matter how high you want to build a skyscraper, you got to dig further down. So I think that you got to start there. You got to start down at the bottom with the basics, before you can build it tall. So that's the first thing that I really think is important for all the kids to learn in all the weight classes, from 25 to heavyweight. I think that there's a certain disciplines that they should be very proficient at. And then you start with the guy's body type. You start with what are his immediate abilities, what are his immediate strengths and weaknesses. And I think that every kid has to be coached differently. I can't coach Zach Zavatsky, the same as Solomon. So, we really have to be flexible as a coach and mindful about all their attributes. And then, we have to get creative and find ways to make them the most successful and get them to reach their goals.
You've wrestled some of the greatest athletes that this country's had to offer in the last generation. What are some things you picked up that as an athlete against guys like Brent Metcalf, against guys like Aaron Pico, against, guys like Kyle Dake, that you've been able to say, okay, what they did against me, I'm going to be able to implement that into a coaching situation?
Yeah. I think that it comes down to, I think the technique is important. The technique is going to be your go-to attack. That's going to be, kind of what defines your game, but more importantly, the strategy. I think that that's something I kind of found out on my own when I ventured out and took notice of some of the international guys. I took notice of some of the former greats and legends before me, and I really made it a point to pick everyone's brain. There's a lot of strategy. There's a lot of strategy to wrestling. I think that, you have a certain pattern that plays out every match, a certain pattern with your footwork, your hands, your shots, your tendencies, and all that kind of stuff. But I also think that outside of the technique, outside of your go-to attacks and short-term stuff, there's some long-term stuff and that strategy. And I'd say the biggest thing is getting out there, wanting to win those matches and having to find a way to win those matches really forced me to figure out some strategy and forced me into another dimension of my game that I had never really paid too much attention to.
While we're talking about the college championships of folk style side of wrestling for the moment, we look back at I guess in this case, Frank, it would be the infamous I Choose Down match. What did you learn from that experience?
Yeah. Well, I learned that, you got to get out bottom to win a national championship.
No, that goes without saying.
I guess the biggest thing was just kind of, I learned, having some humility and being able to correct some of those mistakes after. It took me a while to even watch that match, but, I forced myself to sit down and watch it, and I forced myself to sit down and learn the lessons and, talk about it without the emotion in it and see what I would have done differently and how I could have prepared differently. But the most important thing that I took for granted, to be honest, was, all year I kept saying that, I want to be a national champion. I want to be a national champion. I just want to, I'll get to the NCAA finals and I'll make it happen. And I made it to the NCAA finals, and then things changed for me. It was more just like I was excited. I didn't feel any pressure. I was laid back. I wasn't as sharp. So basically, I learned that you have to have the same focus. You can't let your focus up just because there's no pressure because you're in the finals. The next year I went into training, actually the next day I went into training essentially. And the mindset was I'm going to win a national championship. I don't just want to win one, I'm going to win one. And that was kind of the focus I had. And it was a little bit taxing. It was a little bit, took a toll on my mind a little bit. But, it really forced my focus to be a little bit more sharp that year, all the way up to the point where I got my hand raised in the finals. And I think that's where I let up my junior year. I made it to the finals with the right focus, and then I thought I can just let it fly, and that's not my style.
Was any of that decision on the mat be like, no, I'm going to get out. Was a little bit of that some bravado, some ego, or was it just, this is the
definitely.
moment?
I'm about as stubborn as it gets. If I can't beat somebody, I'm going to keep trying until I beat them, to be honest. I'm not going to give up. I don't really know how to give up. So, choosing down, I think it's definitely not a surprise for me because I know my personality and know how I am. And, to be completely honest, sometimes I don't know how to give up. And I think in that situation, you got to kind of give up on it, take your chances up on your feet, which probably would have been better. But, I mean, you don't see too many people taking Kyle Dake down once. So I don't know how many people I've ever seen take him down 3 times. That's probably what it would have taken to beat him in that situation.
So now from that situation, you've got an athlete. Now you got some Jersey swagger on the team there at Virginia Tech. Now you're gonna have to sit there and be like, "Hey, look, I've been through here. Take neutral."
Yeah. Hopefully we can defer. Get in the third period and then make a decision after they get a takedown or a turn or something.
Now, as we, by the way, did you ever see that video?
No.
Okay.
I can't watch that thing. I saw a little bit of it.
You know which one I'm talking about, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have to admit.
Some guy came up to me and he says, "Hey, I made that video on the internet." And I was like, "Yeah? You want me to shake your hand, be happy about it?"
Yeah, that's that person shall remain nameless. Now, as we work towards your coaching career in Blacksburg, this is a new situation. Have you given much thought about what you've learned in the last year and a half about coaching and competing? Jordan Burroughs, who you wrestled in high school, we'll touch on that in a second, talked about he struggled being on staff while trying to compete. How are you going to balance those responsibilities?
I'm just going to try to bring that same passion, every single day into the wrestling room, bring that passion around the kids, and really take advantage of any opportunity I can, even if it's a lift, even if it's spending an hour around the kids, just trying to, be a good leader and really kind of show them what it takes and believe in their goals and, have the patience and the consistency and the focus to help them get what they need. And I think that's the biggest thing, will be making improvements in the room, because right now, even still, I watch probably an hour of wrestling film every single day, and I'm trying to figure out a way to beat these guys. I'm trying to figure out a way to better myself. So, I've gone through so many different ideas. I've gone through so many different bad techniques and bad ideas that, I think that's where that experience will also pay off, because I want to show these kids things that are going to make them better wrestlers immediately. And I also want to kind of learn more about them in the short term, learn more about them personally and mentally, because, I think that's where it all starts. I think it all starts in your head. You got to believe it before you do it anyway. And you got to have the right mindset and the right approach to be able to have the most improvements in wrestling. So I think, kind of working on some of that stuff and trying to kind of share some of my mistakes that I made and some of my approaches that might have actually harmed me and, just make it more fun for them. Wrestling is so fun. If you think about it, people wake up every single day and they're just trying to get a meal and they're trying to survive, the better half of the world. We get to wake up and chase championships. We get to wake up and go play in the wrestling. We get to go play wrestling every single day. So, really just trying to make the room fun and make wrestling fun for them. If I can do that and make it more enjoyable, I think it would be a success.
Switching things back up to the Olympic team and New Jersey as a whole, we will get to the what exit question. We'll also decide whether or not you think it's pork roll or Taylor ham later in the show. But wrestling Jordan Burroughs, this is a thing that came up a lot in the Olympic buildup because you guys had met in high school. You guys are on the Olympic team now. He's bigger than you. What do you remember about those battles in the early years? And did you ever think when you looked at those moments, be like, man, we're going to be on the Olympic team together someday?
No, that's crazy. I didn't even think I'd wrestle Jordan. I didn't even think that I would be in the finals, let alone Jordan that year. I remember his coach forfeit to me in the South something state championship for the team. And he shook my hand after the match and he said, "Hey, we'll see you in the state finals. And I'm like, this guy crazy? Like, I think he had lost to the guy on my team. He bumped up he lost to the kid that took fourth in the states. And we got to states, and I think he was on the bottom bracket. I think I might have been seeded 8th. Sure enough, he was in the finals, and it was a pretty incredible match. Jordan definitely believed he was going to win, and you could tell by the way that he wrestled all the way to the last second. And then 11 years later, we're on the same Olympic team. So I just, I love the irony in that. It's awesome.
When it comes to recruiting, sticking with the New Jersey angle, there's that sense of pride, there's that swagger being a New Jersey state champion, because there is one state champion. What's that experience like when you say, all right, I am the only guy in this state that won this weight class? And then you go to Penn State where you've got multiple time state champions, but they may have 3, 4, in Virginia's case, 7 classes.
Yeah, I always thought that was really cool. I think that I believe that's still the case in like California and a couple other places. I always thought that was really cool. And it was always something that I took pride in. One of my first goals as a wrestler was to be a state champ. And it took me a long time. I never won the kid states. I took 4th, 3rd, 4th, 3rd, 4th. And, I was just always wanted to be a state champ. And when I got to high school, my first year, I was undefeated. And then I lost to Caldwell my first match at state. Pretty close match. He pinned his way through the states. So that journey to be a state champion for me was amazing. I put it in the top 3 best moments in my entire wrestling career. It was something that I always wanted to achieve. And, having the one division, I think, is pretty awesome. Pennsylvania, there's so many good kids in Pennsylvania that, even the third, AAA, AA, single A, they're all great. They're all really good wrestlers. They all probably could, be in the mix anywhere else to win a state championship. So, it's just so much talent, PA.
When you look at your high school career, just let's go back in time. Let's do the best guy you wrestled at the time in high school. Who was the guy that was like, man, that's the best guy I've ever wrestled?
Well, I would say, Caldwell was good. I respect Caldwell as a competitor. I respect his ability. He's the kind of person that when he wants to win and he wants to turn it on, it's going to be pretty hard to stop him, because he's gifted athletically. He's really got that swagger. He's got that, great reactions, great timing, great anticipation. So at the time, I'd say he's probably one of the better guys that I wrestled in my high school career.
All right, now we're going to get to a segment that I use on my Short Time Wrestling podcast, but we're going to bring it to Inside Virginia Tech Wrestling. It is called Short Time. It's 10 questions thereabouts in 90 seconds. Are you ready for the challenge?
Yep.
All right, question 1. Who's your favorite person to follow on Twitter?
Braden Slay.
Number 2, when you win the Olympic gold in 2020, what are you going to have for dinner?
Buffalo wings and a steak and french fries.
What's your favorite food spot so far in Blacksburg?
Oh, Cabo Taco.
Okay, good call. All-time favorite flavor of Gatorade?
Lemon lime.
Your favorite
Green
video
apple.
game?
Changed my mind.
What was that?
Green apple. And my favorite video game is Gears of War.
Favorite international wrestler outside of yourself?
Mohamed Kurbanaliyev.
Pork roll or Taylor ham? Which one is it?
Definitely a pork roll.
Going to agree with you there. If you could wrestle one person from history, whether it's wrestler or historical figure, who would it be?
Maybe like Kendall Cross. It'd be fun.
Yikes. It might be fun.
Yeah, seriously.
Question 9. Who's your funniest teammate of all time?
Clay Stedman.
I've heard things that he is amusing. Yes. And question 10, your favorite food spot in New Jersey?
Carmine's in Atlantic City.
not the first person to tell me that, but it wasn't on the show. And lastly, you are out of the hot seat. And there's one thing it's more of a personal note that I want to bring up is over the years, I wouldn't say we're close friends or anything, but we've had the opportunity of interviewed you numerous times since you were in high school. And I've noticed a change in your demeanor, in how you walk, how you carry yourself. And you've kind of alluded to reasons why. I know that I am very good friends with Bubba Jenkins, have been for a long time. And I know you and him have had a rift over the years, but I've noticed that the smack talk on your end, and it seems like there seems to be, you guys aren't at each other's throats anymore, and it seems like you have a different way of just handling yourself, whether it be anybody with smack talk, not just to single out the relationship with Bubba. But what do you attribute most to your, I guess from an outside perspective, it looks like a personality change, a shift in your thinking?
Well, a few years ago, I made a decision, and I made a decision to follow the Lord. And, at first, I be completely honest, I didn't really know what that was going to entail, but I knew that something inside of me changed, and something inside of me was kind of always wanting that anyway, and I tried to fill it with my success, and I tried to fill it with a lot of other things, my reputation, money, happiness, and nothing ever really fulfilled that void that I think I had inside of me. And, when I started a relationship with the Lord and I started to follow him and started to buy in and applied the same discipline and focus that I did to my wrestling, to my faith, I saw, a change that is undescribable. I think anybody that, is out there can relate to what I'm saying, but, it's definitely something I would encourage for kids out there, people who just feel like, they just don't have enough or they're not getting enough. I think that a good place to start is a relationship with the Lord. And I think that's where I started. And the journey it's taken me on is incredible. It's incredible. I wake up every single day and I just feel so lucky that I get to do this. I don't feel pressure. I feel pressure to win on myself, but I don't feel pressure from the outside world. I don't feel pressure to be something that the world says I have to be. I'm just very comfortable in who I am and very comfortable in what I'm becoming, and makes it a lot easier when you have that gold standard.
Show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.